So I am honored and privileged to introduce our speaker today, Mr. Randall Hill. And Randy I got to know, and I have a little soft spot for him because I feel a little bad. And the guys who are in class 1 right now or back in orientation know this. He got stuck because he came to the farm probably about a week after I did. And so he was a class behind me, but we became more than, classmates. We became brothers and friends, and he's in the minister's class with me, and I'm very happy that I get to come up here and talk to you about him just for a minute. Pastor said 5 minutes, but I'm just going to cut it short. But Randy is one of those guys. He's really kind-hearted, humble. He's behind the scenes, he works in the IT department. You don't really see him pushing furniture around or things like that. But he works in the sound room with us as well. And whatever you need him to do, I'm like, hey Randy, can you help me with this? And he does it for you right away. And one of the kindest things he did for me, I think it was like a month ago or so, I just needed a little bit of money. He actually went on his day off, he worked for somebody, and he came back, and with a smile on his face, he just gave me that money. And no questions asked. He's like, you need it more than I do. And that's a blessing, so I'm forever grateful to you for that. So, without further ado, my brother Randy.
Go Randy!
Oh. All right, can you hear me? I'm pretty nervous right now. Okay, good evening, church. Wait, this isn't my testimony. All right. This is a message that I've entitled There's More to Come, a message of patience, which is something I struggle with a lot. Patience is a Greek word, hypomone. It's a compound word made up of 2 other words, hypo, which means under or lesser, and monio, which means remain or abide. So abide under or remain under, which is how I feel a lot of the time. Most of my life, in fact. I feel like I've remained under or abided under. It wasn't until I came to Faith Farm that I realized where I needed to abide under and what I needed to abide under, and that is God. The main text is from Romans 5, 3 through 5. And not only that, but we also glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulation produces perseverance, and perseverance character, and character hope. Now hope does not disappoint, because the love of God has poured out in our hearts by the Holy Spirit who has given it to us. Trials and tribulations. Being Christian does not mean that we are magically immune to life's trials and tribulations. Addiction, disease, crime, death of a loved one, financial hardships, and strife. These things and many more still affect us as they do the unbeliever. My sister, when I was about 26 years old, when she was born, she had a birth defect. And they didn't find it for a long time. And she was at a point in her life where she was about 25, and she really wasn't going anywhere. She was kind of stagnant. Her kidneys failed, both. And sorry, it was really hard. She had a young daughter, and she struggled. I mean, she really struggled. And I believe now, looking back from the perspective I have now, that God did that deliberately to show her that her life was important, that she had a purpose. I was blessed to be able to give her a kidney in '97. And after that, her life just changed. It changed completely. She got a degree. She became a whitewater rafting guide. She got married. But God puts us through these trials and tribulations so that when we come out on the other side, we're better off. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that all things work together for the good, those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. And it's going to be more of a trial for those of us who are called to God. He is going to test us. We're going to go through trials. Anyway. Faith and perseverance. Perseverance is, by definition, is to persist in a state, enterprise, or undertaking in spite of counter-influence, opposition, or discouragement. A lot of the things we do every day require perseverance. Sometimes just getting up and getting through the day requires perseverance. James 1, 2 through 4 says, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. And God often utilizes all of our difficulties that we incur daily to solidify our faith and help us to persevere. Perseverance and endurance are crucial. To persevere, one must fight as though engaged in a battle. Passivity and meekness have no place. When you are presented with an invitation to sin, as surely you will be, you mustn't compromise. Be steadfast and lean on the Lord. When I first got to Faith Farm, I was in a different area. I was in CPU, which is a customer pickup area out back. And it was harder for me. It's a very physical job. I might be a little overweight, old. So it was difficult. And I persevered. And it was challenging because a lot of things on this farm, you're presented with opportunities to give into temptation, opportunities to do the wrong thing, opportunities to maybe make a buck or take something you shouldn't or do something you shouldn't do. That is part of this farm, that's part of life. And when you're presented with those challenges, you have to make a choice. You have to decide, am I going to give into this? Am I going to do what the old man would do? Or am I going to represent myself the way God would have me and demonstrate integrity? Show that I want this. I want to be a better person. I want to be the man God intended me to be. And overcome that. Overcome those trials. Overcome that temptation. And move forward knowing that God is guiding you. God is leading you. And if you let Him, He will help you through those times when you're struggling and when you feel that you want to give in to temptation. Resist the devil and he shall flee. A word of caution should accompany the imperative to persevere. As God has given us free will, it may happen one day that you should find yourself attempting to persevere at something that may not necessarily be in accordance with His will. God will create roadblocks, and every time we manage to circumvent one, He will place another in our path. Our lives will become increasingly difficult until we finally stop and examine what we are doing and ask Him for correction and guidance to once more reconcile our will to His. When I first came to Florida, I came for treatment, and it was in a private facility with private insurance. And I felt the pull to Jesus. I felt His call. I wasn't saved. I didn't come to Florida saved. I was confirmed when I was younger, but I never spoke the sinner's prayer. I didn't reach out to Jesus and ask to be saved. So when I came to Florida, I went through secular private treatment, and I got out, and my will was to work. My how should I put it? Everything I felt stemmed from work. It was my identity. I needed to succeed at work in order to succeed in life. And of course I relapsed. I went to another private treatment and I kept pushing, and the whole time I kept thinking I needed Jesus. And it was more, I won't say an afterthought, but it kept recurring to me. And two of the programs I was in had a Christian tract at Cornerstone and at Recovery Road. They had a Christian tract, which I chose. And I felt that I was unworthy of salvation. I felt that I had to achieve something in my life before God would accept me, before Jesus would accept me. I really didn't know. I didn't know anything. I knew how to program a robot. That was about it. And I couldn't treat life the way I did a robot. I needed to learn how to live life and be gracious and live by God's will. And eventually, I finally just stopped struggling. I heard about Faith Farm. I was brought here by His grace. And that lesson, I learned, I was taught during that you can think you're doing the right thing and struggle and struggle and struggle, and eventually you have to just turn to God and say, is this what you want me to do? And if it's not, He'll correct you, and He'll put you on the right path. Hope. Romans 8, 24 through 25. For we were saved in this hope, but hope that is seen is not hope. For why does one still hope for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, we eagerly wait for it with perseverance. In everyday life, when we use the word hope, we are generally using it with an air of uncertainty. For example, I hope this message ends early so I can go and smoke, which can be translated as, not certain when this guy will finish talking, but I want it to be soon. That's uncertain hope. Biblical hope is very much certain. And it can be expressed confidently with expectations such as, my hope is in you, Lord. Meaning that no matter what this world throws at me, I know with certainty that God will be there guiding me, fortifying me to persevere and seeing me through to His glory. And then there's the reward. For our patience, for our perseverance, for our hope and our faith, there's a reward. Genesis 15:1 says, after these things the word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision, saying, do not be afraid, Abraham. I am your shield, your exceedingly great reward. What a great reward it is for us to know God as well as we do today. Perhaps when we were younger, we were compelled to attend church or even offer a formal grace prior to meals, but did we really know God? We did not see His unfailing hand in everything around us. In fact, many of us lived oblivious of His mercy and grace, even as though there were no God. But now we know Him. Truly we do. We know that He spoke every fiber of our world into existence, and that He is a rewarder of men, and we see His hand in every act of providence that we encounter. This is God's glorious creation. Moreover, I am God's glorious creation. The simple and pure joy that comes from knowing that God is everywhere, in everything, and knows all things. He loves us more than we can ever fathom, and were we never to receive any other earthly reward than that, it should be enough. Second Peter 1:5-7. But also for this very reason, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, to virtue knowledge, to knowledge self-control, to self-control perseverance, to perseverance godliness, to godliness brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness love. Be patient in all things, but be especially aware of the requirement for us to be patient with one another. We should deal with our brothers and sisters with the very patience that God has afforded us. Patience is something that it really speaks to me because I know I lack it. I know I demonstrate it daily, how much I lack it to myself, to others. There's a student in here in particular today that knows that I'm impatient and can be dismissive. And to that person who knows who they are, I apologize. It's leaning on the Lord and leaning on His will and not mine. It's when I take my will because, I want to accomplish this today. I have this task set in front of me, and this is what I want to get done. It's my will. Don't interfere. Get out of my way. Just let me do it. That's my will. That's not God's will. And that's obvious. And I have to stop, take a breath, and realize that maybe God sent that person to me for a reason. Maybe He needed something from me that God needed me to give Him, and I failed to do that. So, in everything you do, in everything you say, in every act you do to one another, be cognizant of God. He may be trying to get you to help that person. That person may be sent to you for a reason. Patience is its own reward. I pray every morning for God to bless me with patience, and every day He does. And every night I go to bed knowing that the next day I'll be rewarded for that patience. That's my message.